So for those of you who don't know me, I had a past life as a teacher. In fact, I taught ninth grade English for 14 years and recently had a career change, and I'm quite happy with that. However, this story is from my time as a teacher. It was probably about this time of year. It's getting warm out, and I taught, as I said, ninth graders, and springtime brings with it its own set of peculiarities in 14-year-olds. So they, they're very much ready for summer, and this is, again, it's towards the end of May, and they're very much ready to be done. And I'm given a test this one day, and I look up. I'm trying to keep an eye on what the kids are doing. The class, it's the end of the day. It's the last period class, and these kids are kind of, I know that they have a sense of humor about them. This last period class, they like to play games, and so this particular class, they're taking their test. I'm keeping an eye on them, trying to make sure that they're not looking at each other's papers, and I happen to see one young man in particular, and I'm like, okay, what are you doing? And this young man, I could change his name to preserve whatever, but I'm not going to. His name was George. This young man, George, decided that it was a good time to play a little game. And he said, "There's something on the floor." And I'm like, okay. He's like, I'm not sure. And I look over, and it appears, and I'm like, is that what I think it is? Yeah, I'm not sure whether it's dead or alive. Here on the floor is a snake. And I'm thinking, okay, so these boys, they were out in the field probably a period before, like they had gym class, maybe they were outdoors, they had their bag outside, this snake maybe crawled in. Okay, so there's a snake on the floor. And about that time, there's another young man that's sitting maybe 2 seats behind George. And this young man plays football, and he is, for, lack of a better term, perhaps, he is definitely very football player-like. And so he's this bigger kid, and he sees this snake, and he's very distraught. He's like backing up, and he's trying to like push his chair back, and he's up against the counter, and I'm like, you're not gonna. And so they're like, well, what are we gonna do? And I'm like, okay, fine. So they're playing a joke on me. This is ridiculous. So I go over, and I'm like, they think I won't pick up that snake. I go over and I pick up the snake, and I take it up and I toss it. I went to toss it in the garbage can. I kind of missed. And but anyway, I picked up this snake. And in picking up the snake, I noticed something very odd about the snake. First, it's not alive. Second, it's very cold. Okay, that's odd. It's like icy cold. And I'm thinking, okay. And so I'm trying to find out, where did this snake come from? And, it turns out that dear George decided that it would be fun to bring this snake in and mess with Mrs. Gabow. And so he laid it out on the floor. He had brought it in a little bag in his lunchbox. So hence, it was very cold. And so I figured out that this situation, is George-made situation. And so, I call down to the office, and I'm like, there's a snake in my room. And they're like, seriously? I'm like, yes, but it's George's. I need somebody to come and deal with George. And in the meantime, so he, seeing that this young man sitting behind him is terrified and trying to get away, he's like, don't put that thing anywhere near me. So George, of course, picks up the snake, and he's coming back down the aisle, and he's, teasing this other young man with it. And the other young man starts to kind of get very agitated, and he picks up a chair. And I'm thinking, oh, no. And I was like, no. And I was like, give me the snake. And so the snake ended up in the garbage can. Nobody was hit with the chair. And George was escorted out by our student resource officer. And the student resource officer then later came back, and he's like, where's the snake? And I said, it's in the garbage can. I said, it's dead. It's very cold. And he said, okay. So he takes my garbage can and the snake out as evidence. The young man, it was close to the end of the year, so he didn't come back. He didn't come back for the rest of that year. He ended up, with a little bit of a sentence outside of school. So I did not have to deal with George-made situations any further that year. But that's my story about the snake.